Why do I always let my curiosity get the better of me? Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about Black Orchid, written by Terence Dudley and directed by Ron Jones, who makes his Doctor Who debut here. This is the first two-part adventure in the Fifth Doctor era, and is the first two-parter since the Sontaran experiment, way back in Tom Baker's first era. Now, John Nathan Turner would use two-parters for Fifth Doctor adventures just before the big stories, and he would use these two-parters to basically have a much more lighter tone story. There'd be two-parters for each season or each series of the Fifth Doctor's era. And so we got the first story here. And what's really interesting about this story is that, with the exception of the TARDIS and our three alien travellers with Tegan, Adric and the Doctor, there is no other sci-fi elements in this story. This story is incorrectly called a pure historic, a type of storytelling very popular during the First Doctor era, and would have finished off in the Second Doctor era, in which the Doctor and TARDIS team would go back in time and experience a famous historic event or meet a very famous historic character. And though this story doesn't have any scientific element, and it is set in the past, June 1925, if I'm not mistaken, it doesn't deal with any historic events and doesn't feature any historic characters, despite what the plot tries to tell you. Because I've got to be honest with you, I spent my entire life believing that the Black Orchid book and the writer of it in the story were real, and I thought this story was like the Doctor Who equivalent of the behind the scenes and the origins of the Black Orchid novel. It turns out that was completely false. Everything he did in this is entirely fictional, which is found really strange. And because it's a two-part, there's not a lot of plot. This story really used to basically bring a much more lighter tone, a bit more, less to do with like fighting monsters and beating baddies, and more like a period piece of light-hearted drama. This story was not very popular when by the crew members, with all of the cast members behind it. Peter Davison, Jacqueline Fielding, Sarah Sutton and Matthew Walterhouse, all saying that this was their least favourite story that they've done, which is a real shame, if I must admit, because I honestly don't think it's that bad. Rating-wise, in terms of just pure viewing figures, it had the most viewing figures of the Fifth Doctor era, which I find really funny. Obviously, ratings have nothing to do with quality. In fact, it might just be leftovers for how well the visitation went. But anyway, Black Orchid. The story starts off with the Doctor in the TARDIS with the team, and the Doctor realises that they've landed the TARDIS on Earth again, and that Tegan is saying, I'm not too fussed on getting back to Heathrow anymore, Doctor. I want to come with you now, travelling around. You don't have to try and get me back to Heathrow anymore. And the Doctor's like, I'm not. I don't intend to. I'm not too keen on it. And Nessa would then mention how you don't want to start a fire like last time they were there, referencing the visitation, which would be a part of an ongoing thing in which each Doctor Who story would reference one and before, one and after, keeping like a string of adventures so heavily connected. But anyway, so the Doctor's TARDIS lands in the year 1925, and the Doctor lands on a train, not on a train tracks, but on a train station. And the Doctor explains that what a train is to Adric and Nessa, and they have no idea what a train is. Even Nessa says it's kind of ridiculous. And I love the Doctor's reaction. He's like, "Do you think so? Oh, as a boy, I've always wanted to ride one, to drive one." And I really like that. And this would be a common thread in extended media in which the Doctor is a huge fan of trains. And when they go out to the platform station, they meet a man who seems to know them. He seems to mention that, well, he knows the Doctor anyway. He said he was only expecting one person, by a man known as the Doctor, to take him to a house party for a game of cricket. To which the Doctor, not knowing what's going on, gladly accepts. But another thing as well is that the driver seems to be staring at Nessa. Something seems to be really off. He seems as if he knew her, and I think he says the resemblance is uncanny. But anyway, so the Doctor goes into this party and plays a game of cricket. The first time in which the Doctor actually is seen playing cricket. In previous stories, during the Fourth Doctor era, he's explained on multiple occasions that he's a huge fan of cricket, and Peter Davison's costume is actually based on a Edwardian cricket player. So it actually justifies his costume, and he doesn't look out of place compared to everyone else. And this is probably Peter Davison's Doctor at his most human. He kind of gets along with everybody, and nobody kind of feels him off or odd or dandy. And it really shows that Peter Davison's Doctor is very well versed in blending in, unlike his predecessors who had been standing out a lot during this period. The Doctor kind of works out that there's been a misunderstanding. They were supposed to pick up another Doctor to help him with the cricket, but our Doctor got there instead, and the Doctor plays game. What's really fun about this cricket game is that Peter Davison is actually a huge fan of cricket, and when you watch them play the game and you see him doing very well, it is actually Peter Davison doing very well. I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe in the script it was supposed to be just like a normal game. So he wins, he loses some, just everyone just having fun. But they had to change that, alter it a little bit so that the Doctor's like amazing because Peter Davison was just that good. So that's really cool. When they're there, they get to meet their host, a gentleman, I can't remember his name, and he looks at Nessa and he's like, you are a splitting image of my fiancée, Anne. And when they meet Anne as well, it's played by Sarah. She's played by Sarah Sutton, and they do like a double screen effect in a very, very convincing manner. There's even a point where they shake hands and they get a double to do each of the roles when the camera's pointing at Sarah Sutton. So Sarah Sutton gets a lot to do in this story, and she does a great job at playing both Nessa and Anne. And what I really like about this story is that we just get to see the companions having fun. It's rare that we see a story like this. I know a lot of people prefer the Doctor and companions having an action adventure, fighting monsters, solving a mystery. But sometimes I like the more downbeat moments. I like sometimes I like the stories where we just see our characters just enjoying life, having a party. In fact, nothing really comes to play until part 2. Part 1, which is, by the way, half the story, is just basically our entire characters just having fun and joining a party, especially the companions, as Nessa dresses up like Anne in a dance party, and you just see him having a dance and having a blast, and you meet these characters, and you've got the father of the house, who's this nice gentleman who gets along with Tegan a lot, and Tegan just seems to be fascinated with him. I kind of guess that Tegan fancies him a little bit. That's what it came off to me. Like, she kind of had a thing for him, for the bit of an older man. And she really likes like the dancing and the parties, and she's drinking, and she shows off her dance moves. I can't remember what song they play, but it's a very famous Edwardian song that they play. You've heard it. You've heard it in other movies and TV programs. And Adric, I actually really like Adric in this. He has literally nothing to do with the plot, but his scenes crack me up. I especially like how he doesn't like to dance. He doesn't want to dance because he basically doesn't know how. And Nessa, or Anne, we don't know at this point, takes him up to dance and stuff, and he gets along with it okay. And he just is like, he sees the buffet, and he's like, I'm going to the buffet. I'm going to go by the buffet. And he eats like all the food, and he has seconds, and a big eater myself. I also, I really relate to Adric at this scene. This bit really reminds me of myself going at the buffet and just eating as much as you can, and just not socialising at all. Showing just how Adric can be the worst sometimes, but this story, I have to relate to Adric, even though he has literally nothing to do with the plot. I can't think of a single thing that Adric does that revolves around anything to do with the plot. Same thing with Tegan, coming to think about it, but yeah, and it's just a nice. I really like the dance party scenes in the house. But the Doctor gets kind of caught up because he goes in the bathroom to have cleaning his teeth, getting ready and stuff, and somebody kind of breaks into his house. Now, in the story, before the Doctor even arrives in the story, we see this character. We only see the legs of him at this point, and he seems to have attacked and killed one of the servants there. And the story then doesn't bring it up until later on in the adventure. To which he takes his costume, because they're all doing fancy dress, and the Doctor's costume is a Harley Quinn with top to toe with a mask on. And the Doctor walks into his room after this character has seemingly disappears through the door. But he entered the Doctor's room through an escape hatch, to which the Doctor finds and walks in, and he basically locks himself out of the room. And we get the famous line of the Doctor saying, why does his curiosity always get the better of him? And the story with the Doctor then is basically him just wandering around the secret compartment as this strange character disguises himself and goes up to Nessa. Now, it's around here that Tegan starts talking to the mother of the family, who's kind of, she talks about a special plant that one of her sons, because she had two, the main host, who's the fiance of Anne, and this other character who we don't see, which is one of the characters I believe was a historical figure. At least this story treats him as if. Who was a famous lobotomist, somebody who works with plants, and he tried to find the legendary Black Orchid, but a tribe took him and killed him because the Black Orchid was sacred to their religion, to their tribe, And so that's kind of left a kind of little scar in the family. In fact, Anne was meant to be engaged to him, and after he died, she kind of fell for his brother, which might sound strange, but in 1925, stuff like that was much more common. You would marry much more to keep family wealth intact rather than love or anything like that. So the Doctor gets around, goes in a secret layer, and this mysterious character dresses up like him and sees Anne, and he takes her dancing before taking her back into the house. And Anne notices something's off, and she's like, okay, I'm going to go back to the party now, but this character grabs her by the arm and pushes her to the floor, and a butler tries to defend her, but this character kills the butler and runs off back to the Doctor's room to put the clothes back. Whilst here, the Doctor... by the way, that's our cliffhanger. The cliffhanger is this character grabbing Anne at this point. And that cliffhanger is pretty okay. But yeah. So yeah, let's talk about Ron Jones's directing. This would be his first story for Doctor Who. He would have a long career with it for the 5th and 6th Doctor eras. I believe he was meant to direct one of the unproduced 6th Doctor stories. I could be wrong. And he does a great job of bringing out the period piece drama into this adventure, and you really do feel like this doesn't really feel like Doctor Who at all. This feels like a period piece. It feels like you're in 1925. In fact, I was considering watching this in black and white to give it that extra 1925 feel. If I wanted to do that, I would have to turn the sound off as well, coming to think about it. But anyway, he does a decent job, but nothing groundbreaking yet. He's a great director, and he knows what to get out the story, what the story entails, but nothing too out of the ordinary in terms of directing style. It's a bit more basic than your more experimental directors like Peter Grimwood or your Peter Moffats. Is it Peter Grimwood? I can't remember, but anyway, it doesn't matter. So anyway, back to Terence Dudley's plot. The Doctor finds a dead body in this hallway, which is believed to be the man who gets murdered right at the start of the story. And whilst he's in these caverns, he meets the mother of the house, and she's got a Aboriginal servant, and she basically tells everybody tells the Doctor not to worry about the body. Well, she gets upset and sad, but she's like, is it okay, Doctor, if we don't tell anybody about this? I mean, the police will sort it, and that's it. We don't need to worry about anyone else. Only for later on, the Doctor to dress up in his costume as he gets back into his room and goes downstairs to meet Anne and all that. But now that he's wearing the costume of the murderer who murdered the butler, she believes that he did it. And we get a bit of drama here as the Doctor's trying to work out what's going on and is mistaken, and he tries to tell the mother that the reason why it couldn't have been him because he's already found a different dead body at a different part of the house, but she won't budge in. She doesn't want anyone to know. In fact, she tells the father that the Doctor's lying. He's a fraud. So a bit of a shock there, and the police get caught up and they discover that the Doctor is a fraud. He's not the Doctor that they were expecting, and so the Doctor heads to the police station in the car with his companions. But before that, he says something about to take him to the TARDIS so he can prove to them that what he's saying about him being a Time Lord is true. But when they go to the train station, it's not there anymore. And you think, oh my God, finally there's some sort of alien plot happening. But in reality, it's just the TARDIS has moved to the police station. They moved it there, but they can't break it in. And the Doctor lets them in, which is really odd because during the first Doctor era, the Doctor was hell-bent on not letting any human even know about the creation of the TARDIS. But now he's just letting anyone in. Maybe it's because Ian and Barbara softened him up. But who knows? Anyway, so they convinced that he's not the real bad guy, and it's also here where the mother tells the son that there was a murder beforehand and she covered it up, and it's here that the brother explains something mysterious to Anne, something that he was frightened to tell her before, and the Doctor and our characters run back into the house to where they they bump into a heavily deformed man who notices Nessa and thinks that she is Anne and takes her up into a burning house. This character was locked in his room and he basically tried to burn the door down to try and smash through. So he takes what he believes is Anne to go upstairs, and the Doctor kind of works out that this is actually the other son, the one who wrote the Black Orchid, the one who was looking at the Black Orchid book. What happened is that the tribesmen who discovered him trying to look at the Black Orchid, trying to take it, they didn't kill him, but they severely tortured him and cut off his tongue, which made him insane, to which he's basically gone mad, and he's rampant, and he kills anybody who comes near him. And basically the finale is him on the top of the roof as the Doctor tries to chase him, and the other character, his brother, climbs up the wall, and it's a really great epic shot. In fact, when I said about Ron Jones, nothing really stands out, I tell a lie. The scene on top of the roof, in terms of directing, the close-ups on Peter Davison's face, on all their faces, the more intense close-ups and the acting presence really gives this ending a dramatic tension that really doesn't deserve, if we're going to be honest. And when the Doctor convinces this character that it's not Anne he's got, it's his friend Tegan, he lets go of her and everybody's cheerful and happy, and it's like, hooray, everyone is saved. And I think the bit after them ruins it, as the brother goes up to him to try and hug him, but the deformed brother is so shocked and so stunned, he's like, no, keep back. Though it doesn't say, he just does that and walks backwards, and he falls off the house, killing him dead. And I think you could have done without that, especially considering how this wasn't a real event, and to see this character die in such a dramatic way, even though he got redeemed at the end of the story, that none of it was really his fault. He was just he's just gone mad, and he's doesn't know what's happening basically, and he's confused, and he was kept confined to not scare anyone. I think that ending was really unjustified, and it did kind of put a slight bummer on the story. In fact, the story ends with all the other characters in funeral costumes thanking the Doctor and the TARDIS team that they they came to the funeral. And it really puts just a sad bummer on the end of the story, which I think was really unnecessary. But then the story ends with the mother character giving the Doctor a copy of the Black Orchid book. And yeah, and so that's Black Orchid. Overall, I personally really enjoyed it. It was something different, not much action, it's much more just how characters having fun, and we as viewers enjoy just watching these characters have fun. But I will admit that this type of story is only for a very particular group of viewers. Some people might think this is a really boring story that has literally nothing going for it, which you might be right. I mean, I think it's less to do with people's opinions and more their viewpoints on how they judge a story. Because it's not an action-oriented story, it's much more just like exploring the environments. And I think if you're a fan of like soap dramas, if you're a fan of like EastEnders, Coronation Street, Downton Abbey, this story feels like a pre-Downton Abbey, then I think you can find some enjoyment here. If you like stories that expand more on the characters and just oh look, there's the bad guy, let's go kill it. I also think that to have a story that reverts our expectations, because we as an audience member kind of expect monsters. Even with part 1, you do kind of have that feeling as the Doctor doesn't know how these characters know him. And one character even asks him, tells him that his cricket skills is worthy of the Master, and the Doctor's like, what did you say? The Master, the other Doctor, the blah 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 blah. Oh yeah, sorry, yes. The Doctor kind of suspects that the Master was involved in this. So I really like that it kind of observes expectations, and I really like that despite people liking it or disliking it, we did get an adventure like this in the classic era. That in a season, in an era of the show, with John Nathan's too, and the eras previous to it, that we were so used to monsters after monsters after monsters, that we had something a little bit more low beat. So there you go, that's Black Orchid. So join me next time where we will watch one of my favourite Doctor Who stories. The Doctor and the TARDIS team land in a cave, and something must be amiss as a returning foe returns back to the series. And we have to say goodbye to one of our companions. So see you next time for Earthshock. See you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!